Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Bobby Sylvester, joined as always by Mike Tagliere. How's it going, buddy?
It's going good. It's going really good. I got a lot of interesting feedback on our peanut butter and jelly sandwich conversation.
Most people are mad at me. I'm kind of used to it though when I make food takes. You know, like when I say stuff like that, I know I'm right, but I also know that people are going to come after me.
They're definitely going to come after you, and you just happen to be wrong in this case.
You know, I tried to ease the burden a little bit today by posting about how good ice cream cake was. And you know what? I think some people just want to be mad because people were mad about how good I said ice cream cake was. Give me a break, people.
Ice cream cake's better than regular cake. I'd say that.
Well, yeah. I mean, regular cake's basically like bread. Here we go again. Anyway, Tags and I are on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro and at Mike Tagliere NFL. Tags Father's Day is coming up, and as you know, it is very difficult to shop for another man. But if you go on PristineAuction.com, you're going to definitely find something that they like, right?
There is something for a fan of any team. Like, they have legitimately something from every team and from a lot of different generations, too. So if you're looking like something for your dad that's, you know, maybe he's in his 50s or 60s or 70s, whatever the case may be, they have something for every generation from every team.
Yep, that's right. I saw a Mike Ditka signed mini helmet. Went for just $44 last night on Pristine Auction. If you want to spend a little bit more, they've got all kinds of options from Hall of Fame quarterbacks, everything like that, all kinds of sports as well. I also saw a signed Melvin Gordon jersey, went for just $46. I mean, it would cost you $120 to buy a jersey online of Melvin Gordon. So you get this jersey and his signature, $44. You've got to be kidding me, man.
Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. I think I need to shop for jerseys more because I've been looking at just helmets, but the jerseys seem pretty outlandish. Because
I don't wear jerseys very often, and if I did, I wouldn't want to wear one that had a signature on it, but if I'm getting it for half the price, yeah, I'll wear that thing.
Why the heck not?
I don't know, man. It just seems wrong to do. Anyway, everything is guaranteed authentic from Pristine Auction, so check out what they have for you at PristineAuction.com, and please, when you do buy something from them, make sure to let them know Fantasy Pro sent you. That way we can keep doing these giveaways like the one we have going on right now. We're giving away a signed JuJu Smith-Schuster helmet, and this thing is awesome. We're giving it away soon, so make sure to get your entries in very quickly at fantasypros.com/contest. All right, Tag, so here's what we've got planned for the show today. We're going to be talking quarterback and tight ends, where ECR, that's expert consensus ranking, so we've got 50, 60 experts all around the industry who share their rankings with us. We put them all together and say, this is what the industry as a whole thinks. So we're going to take a look at the quarterbacks that are too high in ECR, too low in ECR. Then we're going to do the same for tight ends. Before we do, though, I want to ask you a question, okay? I saw David Johnson was saying he's trying to get conditioned because apparently the Cardinals are going to run 90 plays this season per game. There's no chance that happens, right?
No, this may have been like a little tongue-in-cheek thing that he said, but we knew that Cliff Kingsbury would want to run more plays, but he's saying that he's preparing to run 90 to 95 plays per game, just to tell you how unrealistic that is. So the Cardinals last year, they were actually one of the lowest in the NFL. They ran 56.4 plays per game. That was the second.
Oh, so we're talking like a 70% increase.
Pretty much from where they were last year. And but the thing is, I went over my database that I have, my spreadsheet that I had pulled up when I saw that was over the last 5 years. I looked at every single team from the last 5 years. In one single season, not even over the whole thing, I'm talking about any team in any specific season of the last 5 years, there has been no one that has run 71 plays per game. There was one team that got up to 70.7, I think it was. But yeah, the 90 plays per game isn't happening. But in the end, I think what to take away from this is it's a good thing. You know, anytime that your offense runs up more plays, it's giving you more opportunity. Even if you're not as efficient with those touches, it's going to generate those. And that's why it's probably going to be a good thing to own David Johnson this year, whereas someone like Le'Veon Bell is kind of screwed because Adam Gase is one of the slowest moving offenses in the NFL. The Dolphins last year averaged 54 plays per game. That's sad.
Yeah, that is very bad. And fortunately for Le'Veon Bell, though, he's not just a running back, he's also a wide receiver.
He is, but they added Jamison Crowder in that area. You know, people are excited about Chris Herndon.
I'm not worried about that. I mean, he had Antonio Brown and JuJu Smith-Schuster on his team, and he's still catching 80 passes.
Yeah, but they also threw the ball, 600 plus times every year.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. All right, Tag, so let's get right into it, and we're going to start at quarterbacks. If you want to follow along really closely, you can see these ECR rankings by going to our homepage at fantasypros.com, scroll over NFL, and then just click on 2019 rankings right there on the left. Okay, we're going to sort on the drop-down menu by position and click on quarterback. And so, Tags, we are looking at ECR, and I want to start this off with a poll that we did on Twitter, at the Fantasy Pros Twitter, which is at Fantasy Pros if you don't already follow it. And it was just crowdsourcing. We asked about 2,000 people, which of these four quarterbacks was the most undervalued? So I want to ask you, Tags, which one you think the public thinks is the most undervalued. Cam Newton, QB 9. Carson Wentz, QB 10. Jared Goff, QB 12. Big Ben, QB 13.
I'm going to go Jared Goff at 12.
Jared Goff at 12 came in second place with 23%.
So was it Cam?
No, Cam was last at 19%
Ooh.
because he's got the injury going on. I think a lot of people are like, I don't really want to do that. It's Carson Wentz. And I think the main reason why is because, the offseason is so slow with news coming in and everything like that. I don't remember who it was, but they said, I think Carson Wentz is going to be the MVP last year. And it's the same guy that just came out and said Patrick Mahomes was going to be amazing. And so he got that right. And I think a lot of people saw that story who were paying close attention, at least, listening to podcasts and answering polls in the offseason. So I think a lot of people are thinking, I might be interested in Carson Wentz right now. If you asked me, though, it would be the one guy we haven't talked about yet. It's Big Ben. And, I don't love him as a Hall of Famer. We don't need to get into that again. But at QB 13, this guy was QB 3 last season.
You're going to hate me for this one. This is actually one of the most disputed ones that I've posted. I am 9 spots lower than the consensus on Ben Roethlisberger.
Wait, hold on a second. So you've got him QB 4, or you're saying you got him QB 22?
22.
Do you know that he has a torn ACL and no one's told us yet? Or what is this? I mean, clearly, okay, he's not going to throw 675 passes, but to go from QB 2 to QB 22, yeah, you lose Antonio Brown. Le'Veon Bell wasn't there last year, so what exactly are you expecting?
So it's not to say that I think that Ben Roethlisberger is going to finish as the number 22 quarterback. This is where projections and rankings differ because it doesn't bake in the consistency that you want with a quarterback, all that stuff. So Ben Roethlisberger is probably going to finish better than this at QB 22, but I'm looking at guys above him like Kyler Murray, guys like Josh Allen. I'd rather have those guys on my team because I feel like they give you a better floor just because of their rushing ability. And Ben Roethlisberger, everything that he does relies through the air. Losing Antonio Brown, he doesn't know what that feels like. It's been a long time since he's played with Antonio Brown. And if you go back to the stages of Ben's earlier career when he was actually in his prime, Ben Roethlisberger was never considered a top 5 fantasy quarterback. I think that there's been 3 times in his entire career where he's finished top 8. So it's not like he's a consistent top 8 finisher like a Drew Brees, like an Aaron Rodgers. So losing Antonio Brown, losing, Le'Veon Bell, I know he didn't have him last year, but those pass attempts, that was, I want to say that was it the 11th most all time or something like that? It was a crazy amount of pass attempts. So that's not going to happen again. Losing Antonio Brown, as I mentioned, hurts. The defense should take a step forward. I just don't like Ben Roethlisberger. I won't own him in any leagues this year. I think he's going to be streaming material. And that's another thing about him. He's been, even though he was the QB2, he was very inconsistent. And he's been inconsistent in terms of playing at home and on the road. We've already talked about that. Road Roethlisberger is not good. So if you can't use a guy in half the games and you're already concerned about him losing Antonio Brown, I just feel like there's just too many question marks with him. I don't want to draft him. And that's why I put him as low as I have, just to make somewhat of a statement saying, don't draft this guy. Let someone else take him.
I know you said I was going to be mad at you. And I disagree on where I've got him ranked because I do rank for where they're going to finish. But if I was ranking for how much I want them on my fantasy team, I would agree. I don't want anything to do with Big Ben. He's just a streamer. Kyler Murray, at least you've got a chance to have a quarterback he can trust every single week. Mitch Trubisky, same thing. Big Ben is probably, if he stays healthy, going to finish in the top 10, maybe even in the top 5 again. He's not going to throw 675 passes again. His career high before this was 608 back in 2014. But you look at him last year, Tags, and we're all wondering, when are these old quarterbacks going to hit a wall? Tags, it already happened to Big Ben last year.
Yeah, that's the thing is, we talked about it on this show. If you listen throughout the season, we talked about Roethlisberger and watching the games. The stat lines might, you might like them for fantasy totals sometimes.
Well, I don't like the 16 interceptions that led the NFL.
Now, he didn't look particularly good throughout a lot of the year. There were some games where he looked fantastic. I remember the one game, I think it was against Carolina. It was a Thursday night game, so it was on primetime. So a lot of people saw that and were like, oh, Roethlisberger looks fantastic. And that was probably his best game of the year. But there were some games in between there that were just dreadful. And I can't imagine him losing his safety blanket and Antonio Brown, losing Jesse James. I mean, I know that Jesse James is nothing, but he's someone that's been a sturdy presence in the lineup for him. Vance McDonald, can he stay healthy? Can he be on the field for all the downs? Can JuJu Smith-Schuster play on the perimeter? Because I don't know if they're going to keep him in his role. I really hope they do, because I think JuJu Smith-Schuster excels in that role. I think he can play on the perimeter as well, but it would be nice if they kept him in the slot and they kind of let James Washington do his thing and Dante Moncrief just kind of play on the perimeter because he's not a slot player. So there's just enough questions for me about Big Ben, and there's been inconsistency in the past. That's the reason that I'm much lower on him than the consensus. But again, projections, I'd probably have him around the QB 15. I still don't like him very much.
Hey, Tags, trivia question for you. I'm looking at this right now. Who led the NFL in yards per pass attempt?
It was not Patrick Mahomes, that I know.
He finished second.
Was it Matt Ryan?
It was not Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was 8th. It's not a bad guess, though, because between 2 and 9, it's all really close. But number 1 is so far ahead of everyone else.
Oh, wait, I know who it was. It was Ryan Fitzpatrick.
It was Ryan Fitzpatrick, 9.6. That's 2 yards per attempt more than Big Ben.
I should have known that. I did my interesting facts article that I did. That one, actually, that set the record for any quarterback ever with more than 200 pass attempts. Ryan Fitzpatrick set the record for one single season.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying he's a great quarterback or anything. He did have 12 interceptions in 7 games started. But he racks up the fantasy points. So I'm interested to see what he does if he does get the start in Miami, because he doesn't really have that many weapons, but he's just going to fling the ball out there and compile the fantasy points for someone.
I don't know if he starts, though. Like, this is such a weird thing in Miami right now, because I don't think that they ever planned on getting Josh Rosen when they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. So the question here is, like, I think they have to go with Rosen, right? Like, you didn't trade much for him.
You have to see what you have. You're not going to win this year. If you go from 4 wins to 6 wins with Fitzpatrick, it only makes your draft pick worse. So I think you go Rosen and see what you have.
Yeah, and I don't think that any of them are draft worthy right now. Like, so those guys, like, even in 2 quarterback formats, it's pretty rough, because even with a second quarterback, when you draft those guys, you want to have like a consistent player, someone that you don't have to worry about them losing their job. And one of those guys definitely can lose their job midseason, or early in the season, I should say. So I wouldn't highly value those guys even in 2 quarterback formats.
All right, Tag. So let's go quarterbacks that are undervalued by ECR right now. We'll each give 2 names. We'll go back and forth. You get to go first. Who are you going with?
Yeah, let's start with Kirk Cousins. So him in regards to ECR and ADP, this is wild. Okay, I didn't even realize this was like that much of a difference. So his current ECR is QB 22. His current ADP is QB 12. Like, this is a 10-spot divide between the public and experts. I'm siding with the public here. I have no idea why experts have him ranked.
I mean, I don't have him QB 12, but QB 22?
No, not a chance he should fall that far. Last year was his first year in the offense. They changed offensive coordinators in the middle of the season. Now he's had a full year to work with the wide receivers. The offensive line, they did make some upgrades to it. They added Irv Smith Jr. Kyle Rudolph is probably going to stick around, it seems like. To me, it feels like people are just overreacting to what was a pretty bad season for him last year. Again, it was his first year with the team. New offense. The defense is much better than it was in Washington, so you're not going to expect those massive numbers. But over the course of his career, him and Matt Ryan are like side by side in terms of like what they do for your fantasy team over the course of the career. Again, I don't want to say that it's totally that way now, because it's obviously a different team he's playing with, but the pass catchers are more talented than Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen and Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith Jr. and Dalvin Cook being healthy. There's just so many things to look forward to that I would take Kirk Cousins over Ben Roethlisberger every single day of the week, and the consensus is completely flip-flopped with me on that one.
So how high do you have him then?
I have a QB 14, so I'm not like insanely high on him, but I think that he's like one of those guys where if you miss out on the top 12 guys, don't worry. Like, you could take Cousins and you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I'd rather take one of the running quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Mitch Trubisky. One of those 3 is going to be there. For me, I'm going with Tags. I know this is probably your guy, but I feel really passionately about it, so I'm going to take it. It's Aaron Rodgers. I don't understand why he's QB3 right now, and I feel like that's not that big of a deal. Everyone's like, oh, well, so what? Maybe he's QB2 behind Patrick Mahomes. I would say he's QB2 or QB1. It's a lot closer to Mahomes than it is to Luck at number 3, but that's a difference of like 20 picks in your draft. Aaron Rodgers is going to last until pick 60, pick 70. I'd take him in the top 45 without hesitation if I needed to. I don't need to, so I'll gladly grab him in the 5th round. But we're talking about someone who every single time he's been healthy has been a top 12 VBD player and has often, several times, been the number 1 VBD player. I mean, we're talking about a potential league winner here that you can get in the 5th round. I'm taking him as my QB2 and very close to QB1.
Yeah, I have Aaron Rodgers as my QB1 right now. I just think it's more safety than Patrick Mahomes. I have Mahomes at 2, and I'm not going to argue with anybody.
Well, I would disagree because of the injury risk.
Yeah, I mean, there is, but then you have the Tyreek Hill risk baked into Patrick Mahomes too. And I was looking at this earlier. So there were just 5 quarterbacks in the NFL who threw for more than 4,500 yards last year. Okay, Mahomes finished number 2 behind Roethlisberger. Of those 5 quarterbacks, here's their touchdown totals: 32, 34, 35, 39. And then 50. You guys are paying for last year's stats. So even if Patrick Mahomes...
Not even last year's stats. You're playing for last year's touchdown percentage rate.
That's exactly what you're looking for. And that's the thing. So Matt...
Which every single year, if you go back and you look at who were the guys that were overdrafted every single year, Derek Carr, Matt Ryan, Deshaun Watson. If you look at the last 3 years, the three guys that were most overdrafted, what did they all have in common? They led the league in touchdown percentage. Patrick Mahomes' touchdown percentage was 8.6, dude.
There have been 7 quarterbacks who posted a higher touchdown percentage than him in history. Those quarterbacks are Peyton Manning. He went from 9.9% to 6.2 the following year. Ken Stabler, 9.3 to 6.8. Deshaun Watson, 9.3 to 5.1. Aaron Rodgers, 9.0 to 7.1. Tom Brady, 8.7 to 5.0. And Mark friggin' Rippon, 8.7 to 4.6. You don't pay for last year's stats. Even if Patrick Mahomes is really friggin' good and an MVP caliber player like Matt Ryan was last year, they had roughly the same yardage. He would lose 15 touchdowns, and Matt Ryan had a really friggin' good year. I'm not saying Patrick Mahomes sucks, so stop. Like, I hate it when people come in my mentions and say, you need to go back and you need to watch Mahomes play football. I watched every game Patrick Mahomes played football.
He's incredible. Nobody is denying that. He's not 50 touchdowns on 580 attempts incredible, though.
Yep, but he's going to regress. And that's the thing is, like, don't pay for last year's stats. We continually tell people don't do this. And that's, again, I'm not going to own any Patrick Mahomes because I'm not willing to draft him in the 3rd round. If Rodgers falls into the 5th round, I promise you that's when I'll take a quarterback early. I will take him. If you're in a draft with me and he falls in the 5th round, I'm going to take him there every single time. And I'm like walking away happy with it. There is no such thing as a sure thing in the 5th round of your draft. So why not take Aaron Rodgers, who has finished as a top 2 fantasy quarterback every year he has played more than 12 games or 10 games, except for last year. And he finished number 6. So it's not like the floor.
Well, last year he was playing hurt. And it's not like he was bad. He had 2 interceptions.
And he was playing with rookie receivers all over the field. I just feel like
he had the lowest touchdown rate in his career at 4.2%.
Yep. And how much you want to bet that goes over 6 this year?
Oh, I'd bet anything on it.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, so people are discounting Rodgers because of last year, but they're paying more for Mahomes last year. It's a recency bias. We continually do it, and that's fine, but don't overpay. You're paying for that ceiling. And Patrick Mahomes, as you mentioned, Bobby, with the passers, the way they've gone, with how like there were so many good quarterbacks last year in terms of fantasy performances. You were saying, what did Patrick Mahomes finish VBD wise last year?
Overall, he finished number 5, man. But everyone's saying it was the greatest fantasy season of all time because of how many points he got, 417 points. And in terms of quarterbacks, that was the number 1. Mm-hmm. But if you compare it to the pack, like how much better than QB 13 was he? He was 20th.
Yeah, value-based drafting is that's the ideal scenario, right? Like granted, value-based drafting is not the only way to approach your draft, but it's definitely a tool. And it's basically saying if things go as they were, this is where he should have gone. And that's why, to me, it's like quarterbacks, are they being overvalued? Yes, because you can get value later. You can stream the position if you play in a league that doesn't draft backup quarterbacks. Things differ and stuff like that. But please, if you're listening to this show, if you get to the end of the 2nd round and you're tempted to take Patrick Mahomes, don't do it. Like, just let someone else do it. And believe me, you'll be better off that way because you're going to get a workhorse running back with that pick instead.
Yeah, so it's not going to happen in a lot of these home leagues or anything. Patrick Mahomes is going to go in the 1st or 2nd round in those leagues. But let's say you're playing in a much more competitive league. How far does Patrick Mahomes have to fall for you to take him?
I would consider him in the 4th round. I think that's where him and Rodgers come into consideration. And as I mentioned, I'd take him late 3rd. I think both of them deserve consideration at that point. But that's why I said in the 5th round, I'm willing to pull the trigger. I know Mahomes won't fall there, but Rodgers has. I've gotten Rodgers in the 6th of some best ball leagues, and it's kind of like, it's crazy. So that's kind of where I'm at. But Mahomes, the 4th is probably the earliest I would draft him.
Okay, so over-under on Patrick Mahomes' touchdown percentage. Last year it was 8.6. I'm putting it at 6.0. Are you taking the over or the under?
Man.
Actually, let's bump it to 6.2.
I'd probably go under just because it's really tough to finish above 6.2. That's like elite numbers. That's like top tier.
All right, Tag. So since 1975, there has only been one quarterback who has a career touchdown percentage over 6%. Patrick Mahomes may very well end up being the best quarterback of all time. I would say it's more than likely not going to be the case. It's possible. I don't say that about quarterbacks rarely. It's possible. But Aaron Rodgers is the only one above 6.0. He's at 6.2%. He's done it for so long, so consistently, that I trust him a little bit more than Patrick Mahomes. I just think he's a little bit more injury prone. He's had, 2 injured seasons in the last 5 years, and then last year as well. So that's why I'm leaning Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, it's really close.
You know what I love the most, Bobby, is that people told me that Tyreek Hill made Alex Smith. And that may very well be the case. Like, he made Alex Smith turn into, like, you know, a guy that was in the running for MVP last year in 2017. Now, all of a sudden, how did we dismiss Tyreek Hill now and Travis Kelce and Sammy Watkins and Kareem Hunt and Andy Reid? How do we all of a sudden dismiss those guys and say that Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback of all time? I'm sorry, I'm not willing to do it. I'm not willing to say that he even belongs in the conversation.
You put Aaron Rodgers with that wide receiver core over under 6,000 passing yards. I'm going over.
I just want Aaron Rodgers with a competent offense is all I want. That's all I want. And, like, he hasn't had that. He's been under Mike McCarthy his entire life, which sucks.
Remember when Tom Brady said that if Aaron Rodgers played for the Patriots, he'd have over 6,000 yards every year?
Yep, I do remember that because Tom Brady knows how good Aaron Rodgers is.
Yeah. I like Tom Brady, man. I love following him on Twitter. He's a lot of fun. And I know a lot of people think he's this arrogant prick. Maybe he comes with that mentality or has that face on the football field, but he's just a good guy. I like him.
He's a competitor. That's the thing I like about Tom Brady. Now, speaking of Tom Brady, where do you have him in your rankings? Because there's people telling me that I'm way too low on him.
Are you sure that you want me to ask me this? Because I'm going to make a lot of people really upset.
You better. I mean, I know I have already.
I've got him QB 20.
I have him 21.
Okay, and guess what? ECR has him at 20. ADP is at 14. Which doesn't surprise me. ADP, by the way, if you don't know, means average draft position. So this is where the public is taking him in their drafts going on right now. And I guarantee you, when the preseason rolls around, everyone's going to be drafting Tom Brady in the top 10, 11 quarterbacks because that's what they do, and the more casual fans are going to be drafting then. Right now, it's the hardcore guys, and they're still pretty high on him.
Yeah, at 14, that's still high, man. Like, taking him over guys like Lamar Jackson. Like, I mean, you could argue me about Trubisky, but you're taking him over Jameis Winston. Like,
He's going 7 spots ahead of Jimmy G.
Even with Rob Gronkowski last year, Tom Brady finished as, the number 17 quarterback in points per game? Like, that was with Rob Gronkowski. And now Gronk is gone. They brought in N'Keal Harry. Okay. Like, is that going to replace Gronk? They brought in Austin Seferian-Jenkins. They brought in Ben Watson, who's now suspended for the first 4 games. Like, they haven't really replaced a lot of the wide receivers in the team. And again, N'Keal Harry is a rookie, so you want to, approach with caution there. I just think that they're a team that's going to run the ball a lot.
Did you say he finished QB 17 in points per game? That's not good, Tags.
No, and that's what I'm saying is like,
Andy's 42 years old.
And this is no disrespect to Tom Brady. Like, he's just not a good fantasy quarterback anymore. You don't want him on your fantasy team. That's all.
They're not using him in the way that you would want your quarterback to be used. And of course, he's not going to run either, which does come into effect. Okay, so let's be honest. In fantasy, would you rather have maybe the best real life quarterback in the league, Tom Brady, or the worst real life quarterback, Josh Allen?
I'd rather have Josh Allen, actually.
Me too.
And there's some people that are trying to tout Josh Allen as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. I'm against that, by the way. I want it to be known that Josh Allen, so the boom bust and everything in between, his numbers in this, like, Josh Allen was legitimately outside the top 18 fantasy quarterbacks half the time.
Oh, that's awful. That's how you lose a game.
No, exactly. That's going to lose you fantasy football. However, he posted 26 or more fantasy points in 33% of his games, which was the 4th highest, behind only Mahomes, Breeze, and Matt Ryan. So therefore, he's like an ideal best ball pick. Like, you take him in best ball leagues and you're just like, I'm going to get the best that he does, and I don't have to worry about the worst weeks because I have another quarterback to do that. But in standard, like, regular leagues, it's like, would you rather have I'm putting it in quotes, relatively safe floor of Tom Brady, who was a top 18 quarterback 62.5% of the time? But he rarely ever hits that ceiling. Like, Tom Brady doesn't have those massive weeks anymore.
I'd rather use a streamer which hits, that mark 70% of the time, right?
Yeah, I'd rather take the upside with Josh Allen.
For best ball, I'd rather have Josh Allen, man. I certainly would not like to start Josh Allen. Just give me Jameis Winston. And that's my next player. I'm going to jump right into it. And I know I'm skipping you here, but, we've been talking off topic a little bit for a while. So Jameis Winston right now, ADP 15, ECR 11. So the experts like him a lot more, and that's something that you should take notice of when you're looking at this cheat sheet that we have pulled up here. When you see the experts a lot higher on a player, typically they're on to something. I mean, these are guys who are getting paid to do it for their lives, to do this research 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And when they look at a guy like Jameis Winston, who, sure, he's not the greatest real-life quarterback, he's a gunslinger, he's a risk-taker, he's going to pile up the fantasy stats. I love his options in the wide receiver core. I love his coaching scheme. And look at what Ryan Fitzpatrick did last year with Tampa as well. Him and Jameis Winston combined would have been the QB2 if they were one quarterback. And Jameis Winston right now is being ADP 15, ECR 11. Tags, I've got him QB6.
Yeah, you're higher. You're even higher than him than me. I have him at 10, so I'm a little bit higher than the consensus, a lot higher than the ADP.
Yeah, I'd rather have him than Baker Mayfield, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers.
Now, I would rather have him than Brees because I think Brees is going to take a slight step back. He's been slowly doing that as the defense has been getting better. They want to run the ball. I get all that. So I understand wanting to take him over Brees, but over like a guy like Baker Mayfield, I don't think I can do that. It's like I think the conversation for me with Winston comes down to guys like Jared Goff and like Mitch Trubisky. Like that's the territory he belongs in. And even Brees in that conversation too. These guys all have weapons, right? Like you're thinking about like, which guy do I draft? This guy or this guy, this guy or this guy. Instead of worrying about what guy is going to get it every single week, you go to the guy who's distributing it, and that's Jameis Winston. I don't think all of a sudden overnight the Bucs are going to turn into a team that's rushing for 2,000 yards. Like I don't think that's the team they're going to be. As much as I'm talking about Ronald Jones, I still think they're going to be a pass.
You're talking about Ronald Jones because he's going to get 250 touches, 300 touches.
Yes, and that's the thing is like you talk about Winston, you're talking about Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, OJ Howard, is he going to break out? And, Brashad Perriman even had some highlights with the Browns last year.
I saw Sean Corner drafted him last night in our Dynasty draft.
Yeah.
And that made me think, hold on, I need to pay attention to Brashad Perriman because Sean Corner knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like Brashad Perriman had some good moments with the Browns last year, so maybe it was the Ravens, maybe it wasn't all on Perriman.
And we know he's a freak athlete. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And, going to Trubisky, talking about his weapons, Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller, Taylor Gabriel, Trey Burton, Tariq Cohen. There's a lot of guys there, right? And every single week it's going to be difficult for you to kind of figure out who they're going to. So I'll take the guy that's distributing all those passes. And that's why I like Jameis Winston and Mitch Trubisky. Those guys are on my list as well as guys that I like more than the experts do and more than the public.
All right, so who's your next guy?
Yeah, I had Trubisky there. He was one that I'm definitely higher on. I have him at number 12. Right in front of Lamar Jackson. So Lamar Jackson and him are back-to-back in expert consensus, but ADP has Lamar Jackson higher. I mean, the Ravens brought in some pass catchers, yeah, but again, they're rookies. Lamar Jackson didn't show the ability to carry anyone as a receiver, including John Brown and Michael Crabtree last year. So I'm not expecting a whole lot of passing from Lamar Jackson. I think it was more to make life easier on him because he might see fewer defenders in the box. Whereas Trubisky flashed as a passer. He didn't always look great, but he has the ability to run the football as well. So those are two guys that I'm definitely higher on than the consensus. I have them both 4 spots higher than the ECR. So Trubisky and Lamar Jackson, I think those guys are back-end QB1s, high-end QB2s, where if you're loading up everywhere else at receiver, running back, tight end, you can grab these guys later in drafts. Like Trubisky, you can get in the double-digit rounds. Lamar Jackson depends. Some people are higher on him than others. But yeah, those guys I'm definitely higher on.
I like Lamar Jackson a little bit more. I'm with you. I've got him at QB 13. I've got Trubisky at 17. For best ball leagues, this is different. I've got exposure to Trubisky everywhere. I just don't know if you can trust him every single week, whereas Jackson is just a safe play each and every week. I don't think he really has the week-to-week upside that Trubisky does, because what's he going to complete? 15 passes at the very most? We've seen Trubisky go on a run of greatest 3 fantasy weeks in a row in the history of fantasy football. He's got killer upside, but I just can't trust him week to week. So I've got him a little bit lower than you, but I agree with the optimism of saying, this guy could be a top 5 quarterback at some point.
Yeah, and I think someone that might be a little bit undervalued is Matthew Stafford at this point. I mean, I'm not even high on him right now, but when you look at him, like last year was a down year. I think it's me more like I'm a little meh on the coaching staff there. I'm not really high on them, and that's why I think they're going to limit Matthew Stafford, and now they're saying that they're a running football team. But Stafford has been like that guy that's been right around Phillip Rivers all the time. And everybody wants to draft Rivers, but nobody wants to draft Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Tags. I don't especially want him. He's got some upside. We've seen it before, but he averaged 13.3 fantasy points per game. That's less than Case Keenum. That's less than Alex Smith when he was with Washington. Less than Eli Manning. Less than Joe Flacco.
It was a rough year.
2 quarterback league, yeah, he's not going to lose his job.
Like I said, it was a rough year for him. I'm not going to dispute that, but below some guys like that are on the board, like, I don't know, behind Derek Carr.
Tied with Blake Bortles, by the way.
I don't know if I feel that way. Like, would it surprise me if Stafford finished better than Brady? No, wouldn't surprise me at all. But a guy that, like, I think that the consensus is higher on that I want to go the other way is Phillip Rivers. Rivers, like, raise your hand if you're listening and you've heard someone tell you that Phillip Rivers has been a top 14 quarterback like every year. And what does that do for you? Like, what does that actually do for you? Because he hasn't finished better than, like, I think QB 8 was his highest finish in like the last 5 years. So it's not like he's offering you any tremendous upside that it's like, well, he finishes here. He's a floor quarterback is what he is. And his defense continually gets better and better and better. The running game works. So it's like Phillip Rivers, yeah, he's probably going to finish as a top 15 fantasy quarterback, but does that mean you want him on your fantasy team?
No, unless I'm streaming him, but I'm not going to be able to stream him because someone's going to own him and start him every week, and it's not going to help their team that much. He did finish QB3 all the way back in 2008, and this is the first time he's ever had an elite running back, an elite wide receiver core, a good offensive line, and we'll see if those guys all stay healthy, but at 38 years old, I don't think he's going to have a career year. I agree. With that said, I think the Chargers are winning the Super Bowl. Chargers over Packers. That's my early call.
That's not a bad pick. I mean, the Chargers are a really good football team, and that's why I think it limits Rivers.
Top 5 defense in the NFL, man.
He doesn't run at all. Like, when you have quarterbacks like him, like Roethlisberger, like Brady, those guys don't run at all. Like, legitimately, you're not even going to get a rushing touchdown. Like, Tom Brady, every now and then, will jump over the pile and score a rushing touchdown and, make Sony Michel owners mad. But you don't even get that out of Rivers. Like, you're not going to get it. So for me, I would rather take the upside of someone like a Carson Wentz or someone like a Lamar Jackson or Mitch Trubisky. I'd rather have those guys on my team than Phillip Rivers, just because I know there's a possibility they can carry me to the next level. Those guys actually have top 8 quarterback upside, where I don't think Phillip Rivers does.
So tags, Aaron Rodgers had the worst season of his career last year, finished with 312 fantasy points. Jared Goff was at 310. How many times do you think Phillip Rivers has finished over 300?
Maybe once.
Never happened. I mean, that's his ceiling, is what Jared Goff did last year.
Again, that's another scenario where Phillip Rivers, I think that he legitimately he should have a chance at the Hall of Fame. Whether or not you agree with me or not, we all understand that he's a very, very good quarterback. He's just not a very good fantasy quarterback is all.
I'd rather have him than Eli Manning. I'd rather have him than Joe Flacco. I think he's a better quarterback than Big Ben. I think Big Ben has better credentials. I don't think Rivers gets in.
Yeah, unfortunately. If Eli Manning gets in over Phillip Rivers, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah, me too, man. Okay, so we're going to move on to quarterbacks that ECR is too high on here in just a second. First, though, I want to ask you, okay, this isn't fantasy relevant, but if you're an NFL team, I saw this on Twitter, and I could not believe the poll results. I don't remember who posted it. But which quarterback would you most want for this year if you're an NFL team? Rank your top 5.
I saw that poll, and I was like, I quoted it and said, this is a joke. This is a joke, because people are voting Patrick Mahomes. Like, I get it, guys. He had a good season. But to sit here and say that you'd rather have him over Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, you guys are nuts. Like, just seriously, for a moment, give one of those quarterbacks, Tyreek Hill and Andy Reid, as their coach and see what happens. Like, that's the thing. I'm so tired of this, because I don't want to discredit what Patrick Mahomes did, but I'm so tired of people discrediting what those other quarterbacks have done in much lesser opportunities. Like, it's just frustrating is all.
Yeah, so I'm going Aaron Rodgers number 1, Drew Brees number 2, Tom Brady number 3, Patrick Mahomes number 4, and at number 5, I'll take Russell Wilson.
And some people even said that Andrew Luck should be ahead of some of those guys.
Yeah, Andrew Luck's definitely in the conversation, but
Russell Wilson?
I mean, those guys win every single year.
Yeah, Russell Wilson should be in that conversation too. I think Baker was on that poll, and I was like, okay, I like Baker Mayfield, but let's not put him like crazy. Like, let's not go there yet.
It wouldn't surprise me if he performed like that, but I'm definitely not willing to put my name behind him being better than Tom Brady or Drew Brees or anything like that. That's crazy, guys.
Now, where are you at on Baker Mayfield?
Okay, so let me pull up Baker Mayfield right now. I've got him at QB 8. ADP has him at 5. ECR has him at 5. I can't take him over Russell Wilson or Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Ryan and him are in the same boat to me. Like, I feel like Matt Ryan's defense is going to be a lot better. All right, his receiver core is awesome. Like, Matt Ryan has proven it time and time again.
Best in the NFL.
That's what leads me to say that I'd probably go Matt Ryan there. But Baker, so the thing is, once they got rid of Hugh Jackson, I was looking at this earlier today, Baker Mayfield completed 68.4% of his passes. He averaged 282 yards per game, 2.4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. I added that all up.
And then they added Odell Beckham.
Right, exactly. So I added that up. Without Odell Beckham, right? He would, over a 16-game season, that would be 4,509 yards. That would rank 6th in the NFL. And then he would have 38 touchdowns, which would rank 3rd in the NFL. And again, that's without Odell Beckham. But the concern I have about both those guys is that both their defense are going to be a lot better. Matt Ryan, that defense was like literally gutted last year. Like, they lost so many starters. You couldn't have expected that defense to play very well. And Baker Mayfield, Cleveland, I know people have like ranted and raved like about Baker, and I love Baker. Everybody knows that. I'm a big fan of his. But I think that Cleveland defense is so much better than people are giving it credit for, and that I think they want to be a run-first team. And, obviously they're going to throw. It's a passing league. But I think they want to run the ball more often than people expect them to, which is going to limit the upside of someone like Baker. And knowing that he doesn't rush all that much, it's hard to put him over guys like Deshaun Watson or Andrew Luck. Russell Wilson is in that conversation, but Wilson, he's not really running anymore either. But he's someone who his defense probably got worse, Russell Wilson. So we should see an increase in pass attempts this year.
And he lost Doug Baldwin, but he didn't really have Doug Baldwin last year either. It's just, from 4, where I've got Matt Ryan, all the way down to 9, it is so close together that it's kind of nitpicking in my opinion.
I kind of agree. I kind of think 5 through 11 actually feels like it could be interchanged in any way, and I think I could be persuaded any way. I think once you get outside.
So who do you have at 10 and 11?
Yeah, once you get out, I have Breeze at number 11. So, I could make the case for Breeze to be at number 5 with Mark Ingram gone. Maybe they throw a little bit more on the goal line. Alvin Kamara, they haven't wanted him to be like a workhorse running back, but they did bring in Latavius. They brought in Jared Cook. That's obviously another weapon for Breeze. So I can make that argument for him too. But it's once you get outside those 11, that's where it's like you're looking for upside. You're taking the guys like Trubisky, like Lamar Jackson, like a Carson Wentz, who I'm not so positive that he's a sure thing like some people do.
I agree, man. I think Peterson is a sure thing, so I can trust Wentz, but I don't know. I've got him at QB 14 right now. I'd rather have Lamar Jackson. I'd rather have Big Ben. So I'm missing something, okay? You've got Drew Brees at 11. You've got Jameis Winston, I think you said, at 10. Who do you have at 9 and 8? Do you have Jared Goff in your top 10?
I do. I have Goff at 9.
Oh, tags.
I might move Goff up even further. So this Todd Gurley thing, the worse it gets, the more I am all over Todd Gurley.
Goff is who he is because of Todd Gurley.
No, I don't think that. I think he's who he is because of Sean McVay. And I think that we saw that with CJ Anderson, where CJ Anderson stepped in and filled that role, where, getting Darrell Henderson, getting Malcolm Brown back there, whatever they have to do. But the more that I'm seeing Todd Gurley dealing with this condition and, it's sounding worse and worse as time goes on, the more I'm liking Jared Goff, because when this team throws more, Jared Goff's he's scoring points. Cooper Kupp's coming back. He looks good coming off the torn ACL reportedly already. Robert Woods has been consistent. Brandon Cooks was in his first year with the team last year. And we know traditionally it takes some time for wide receivers to get acclimated to the offense, to develop some chemistry with the quarterbacks. So for me, like Gerald Everett is now entering year 3. It's like, does he take that step forward? I feel like Todd Gurley might lose some of those targets, but the wide receivers are going to make up for it. And I think Jared Goff is a safe quarterback play. I think he's a low-end QB1, and I think he's safe. I think the upside is there for more.
So from week 5 on, tags, that's a big sample size. He started the season really hot. But after then, I don't know if defenses figured him out. Like if there is, just a blueprint on how to stop Jared Goff. And you remember in the playoffs, he looked really bad. Jared Goff averaged 17 points per game. Tags, that was QB 18 over a 12-week sample size.
Yeah, no, it's even worse if you look at, break that sample down to weeks 13 through 15. It was right out of their bye. So what happened, I remember this so clearly because I was trying to figure out what the hell was happening with Goff.
Oh, yeah, it was cold, and he's a California boy.
Yeah, well, it was weird. So they had that game against Kansas City, the game that, everybody watched, and, they each throw for 400 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns, whatever it was. But then they had their bye week, and after their bye, Jared Goff was a different player. He sucked against Detroit. He went to Detroit and he was bad. He didn't play very well in that game. Then he went and played in Chicago. Terrible.
Meltdown. Panic. Absolute panic in Los Angeles.
Yeah, that was rough. And then he played against Philadelphia and didn't have a good game against them either. He threw for 339 yards, but he didn't throw any touchdowns.
Yeah, and 53 attempts. Yeah.
Yeah, those 3 games combined, I think he totaled 18 fantasy points. So that really dragged it down.
And then in the playoffs, he had 712 yards and 1 touchdown in 3 games.
Yeah, towards the end of the season, something was off.
I'm worried, man. I've got him outside my top 15 quarterbacks.
I just don't think that Jameis Winston deserves to go over him, just because I think that we're hoping with Jameis Winston, right? We don't know anything for certain. And Jared Goff has just as talented as wide receiver core. Maybe not just as talented, but close. And I believe in the system more, where it's like Bruce Arians' his first year as a head coach there. He may lean on the running game a little bit more. But the one thing that Jameis Winston does have going for him, and I guess you could say the same about Goff, is that their defenses aren't very good. Losing Sue on the defensive line for the Rams, they weren't a good defense necessarily with Sue. But losing him isn't going to help. The Bucs, that defense is just not good. It's bad. So there could be plenty of shootouts with him. And then Cam Newton at 8. I mean, hell, I'm assuming Cam Newton plays. I'm assuming that
he's not starting week 1, man. It's going to be Will Grier.
I mean, if it is, obviously, the more I hear about Cam, I have no issue moving him down. And he's actually lower than I've had him in years past, just because it's like he's starting to lose some of that rushing upside. He's over 30 years old now. Christian McCaffrey has shown the ability to get it done. They drafted a bigger body running back. And I just feel like they're going to dial that back. And if Cam can't get it done passing the ball, he's going to lose a lot of that upside. So, I mean, Newton, I could definitely see moving out of the top 10, especially if he's not practicing, if he's not healthy. But yeah, that's where I'm at in those guys.
What would surprise you more? Cam Newton finishes QB1 or Kyler Murray finishes QB1?
It would surprise me more if Kyler Murray finished number 1.
Okay. You still think Cam has that kind of upside then?
No, I don't, but I don't think Kyler Murray does either.
You just don't believe that Kyler Murray has a chance to rush for 1,200 yards.
The thing is, people want to talk about Murray as like the rushing ability and stuff, but he's not a Cam Newton. Cam Newton is like legitimately the size of a tight end that you cannot tackle. Like, that's why he came in and he was able to dominate fantasy football.
Kyler Murray's a little bit bigger than Danny Amendola.
Pretty much. And did you see the picture of him next to Marquise Brown?
No.
So they had their rookie photo between with all the rookies to show up in uniform, and Marquise Brown was standing next to Kyler Murray. Marquise Brown is said to be 5'9". Kyler Murray looks shorter than him.
Ooh.
So some people said that it was like a whole height gate thing where it's like people like it was a wrong measurement and blah blah. I don't know what it means, but
I don't know, man. When you see him, he looks a lot shorter than they say he is.
He's a small dude. Let's just say that. And if he starts running the ball a lot like Cam Newton was and taking those hits, he's not surviving 16 games.
Yeah, I think he's built kind of like Javid Best, CJ Spiller, and those guys were.
Oh God, let's hope not.
They were dynamite, but man, they were hurt quick.
He better start sliding. Is all I gotta say.
Yes, you're definitely right. Okay, so I named my guys that I was too low on. Jared Goff was one of them. Baker Mayfield was the other. And I guess not too low. It's kind of nitpicking with both of those ranges. Do you have any others you want to add before we go to tight end?
No, we talked about a lot of my guys. Like I said, Roethlisberger, he was there at the beginning of the conversation. I mentioned Rivers, and I think Carson Wentz a little bit too. But yeah, we talked about a lot of those guys.
Okay, so I'm looking at my tight end rankings and tags. I know this is really boring. Some people think I'm a hot takey guy, lots of hyperbole and everything. My rankings look extremely close to ECR. I did not do that intentionally. I don't really have much to say here, so you're going to have to carry the conversation.
Unfortunately, I think this is the case with a lot of people. Myself included, my top 4 match ECR. Even beyond that, you have to go all the way down to number 9 to find someone that I'm 2 spots different on, and that's Vance McDonald. I like him 2 spots more than the consensus does.
Wait, so you've got Vance McDonald at number 9. He just moved up to number 10, so you're really not that big of a difference there.
That's what I'm saying is like these are like I think that with tight end more than anything, you're just looking for opportunity and you're looking for the guys that you know are going to get targeted. And I feel like I could make the case to move Vance McDonald over David Njoku. Just because with Beckham arriving, with Jarvis Landry still there, I don't know how high the target ceiling is for David Njoku. That's the concern there. But like that's Jared Cook. I'm 2 spots lower.
Me too. I've got him at 9. ECR has him at 7.
I'm going to go down a little bit lower. I'm going to say Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham is someone I have higher than the consensus. I have him 4 spots higher. I have him at 13. I actually might move him to number 12. I don't know why everyone is completely backing away from him. Now, if you guys listened to this podcast last year, you know that I was down on Jimmy Graham. I was not drafting him anywhere. I thought it was crazy that he was being drafted.
You weren't down on Jimmy Graham. You were down on the idea that any first-year guy in a Green Bay Packers system is going to do anything, and for good reason. You were right.
Yep, and that's why Geronimo Allison was a good pickup, because it was like
And he still finished tight end 14.
Yeah, and it was a terrible season where I think he caught one or 2 touchdowns all year.
Yeah.
So Jimmy Graham, they did keep him around for another year. They drafted Jay Sternberger, but Sternberger's not going to get on the field as a rookie very much. Like he's basically there to learn from Jimmy Graham. So Graham's going to be on the roster. He's going to play. He's going to be a red zone option. Aaron Rodgers is going to throw more than 25 touchdowns. So when you're talking about tight ends this far down the board, you're looking for guys with 10 touchdown upside. And I'm sorry, I don't think that Austin Hooper presents it. I don't think that guys like Safarian Jenkins or, Chris Herndon, there's not a chance he scores 10 touchdowns. So it's like those guys that people are drafting, I would much rather take Jimmy Graham.
So let me ask you this, Tags. You said you've got Jared Cook at number 10. ECR has him, I believe, at number 7. Did you know that Jared Cook was one of only 5 guys with over 93 fantasy points last year? He had 125.
Yeah.
And he didn't do that in New Orleans. And we know New Orleans is it's either New Orleans or Indianapolis that's the best for tight ends.
It was. So that's the thing is like I bought into that narrative when Kobe Fleener went to the Saints, and that really didn't work out, obviously. Ben Watson, Had some good years. But Jared Cook, like, let's not pretend that he didn't play with Aaron Rodgers a couple of years ago. Like, he played with a really good quarterback. And Rodgers does not target tight ends.
A really good quarterback that hates tight ends. Drew Brees loves tight ends.
Yeah, so I think Brees does when they're extremely talented. I think Brees is just a phenomenal football player. Like, he knows who to find, and he knows who the best players are, and that's why Kamara gets his targets. That's why Michael Thomas does. You know, Traquan Smith didn't get very many, but he can step up when needed. I think Jared Cook is just another guy to help draw attention down the seam of a defense to open things up for him. I cannot lock Jared Cook in for more than like 85 targets, which makes it difficult for me to rank him higher than like tight end 10, because I've seen in the past, if this guy doesn't get targeted, he disappears. He's just not he's not an impact player. He's more of a volume player. I know a lot of people had high hopes for him earlier in his career, but one season with the Raiders is not going to sway me to say that Jared Cook is like a lock.
They had nobody, man. They traded Amari Cooper, and who was their lead wide receiver? Jordy Nelson?
Yeah, Jordy Nelson. Well, he retired now.
I was trying to make the point that I think everyone is going to make. Hey, he's going to New Orleans. He was good last year, so why don't you love him? I don't love him because he was the only guy last year. They've got Michael Thomas, man.
Yep, Jared Cook's...
They've got Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
He's going to be the number 4 or 5 option.
Yeah, Jared Cook saw 101 targets last year. He's not going to get... I don't think he's going to get close to that number. I think there's only like 5 tight ends that you could probably say that about that are locked into 100 targets. Maybe even 4. Kelce, Ertz, Kittel, and Evan Engram they fit into that. Eric Ebron, I'm not locking him into 100 targets because... Well, he saw a ton of targets when Doyle was out.
Is he the starter?
Yeah, I think Ebron is going to be the starter, just because Doyle's getting older. But it's going to be mixed. It's going to be mixed time. But there's no way he sniffs that 110 targets he saw last year.
Yeah. Everyone's treating Ebron like he's just an absolute lock. I mean, I guess not everyone. ECR has him at 8. That's where I've got him. ADP has him all the way up at tight end 4, ahead of OJ Howard, ahead of Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry is down at ADP 8 tags.
Yeah, speaking of Eric Ebron, you made a trade surrounding Eric Ebron last night. I think you should share that trade because Bobby, if you guys listened to the podcast last year, Bobby did say that he was buying Eric Ebron at the chance that he becomes like the Zach Ertz in Frank Reich's offense. And, you know, Ebron really paid off. So Bobby had him on his roster, and Bobby kind of sold low on Ebron last night, but I kind of understand why he did it.
Okay, so, you know, I traded my 1-9 and my 2-1. Because I'm trying to win now. So I didn't have any picks in the first 2 rounds. So I traded, when Marquise Brown was still on the board at 2-6, I traded Eric Ebron for him in a dynasty league. I already had a tight end. I've got Hunter Henry there. I think Hunter Henry is infinitely better than Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron's just tied to Andrew Luck, but I'm not sure he's going to be the guy that gets all these targets, red zone targets. I don't even know if he's starting. I still think that Jack Doyle might be the guy.
He's going to lose some targets to Devin Funchess in the red zone. He's going to lose some targets to Paris Campbell over the middle of the field, who's going to be playing in the slot. So I've definitely soured on Eric Ebron, and I've told people that try and shop him, I'm like, hey, if you want me to buy Eric Ebron, like, you better bring your price way down because I'm not buying high on this guy. You guys know me better than that. I was so mad that when you made that trade because I was actually trying to trade into that spot to take Marquise Brown. So I'm not actually mad at it. If someone heard Eric Ebron for the 2-6 pick, they'd be like, oh, you should have got more. But knowing that Marquise Brown was there, I think it was a fair trade.
Yeah. Yep. I think so as well. Okay. So I've got Hunter Henry at 5. ADP has him at 8. Where do you have him, Tags?
I have him at 6, right behind Evan Engram and OJ Howard.
Okay. See, I'm not convinced that Evan Ingram's going to get a ton of targets in an offense with Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard. I don't know who they put in the slot there, but both those guys are going to get theirs. I think Ingram's the number 3. And you got Saquon Barkley. Maybe he's the number 4 in Eli Manning's offense.
Well, I mean, then you look at the Chargers, though, and Hunter Henry is behind Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Melvin Gordon.
Oh, okay. I mean, sure, but
obviously it's Phillip Rivers throwing passes instead of Eli Manning.
Yeah, that's true, but Hunter Henry was more efficient in his first 120 career touches than Rob Gronkowski was in his prime. Zach Ertz was in his prime. Travis Kelce was better last year than Hunter Henry ever was, but we're talking about like superstar efficiency that Hunter Henry's shown. When he comes back, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Keenan Allen gets a bump down, if Mike Williams isn't as good as we all think he's going to be because Hunter Henry's there now.
Basically, since we're so close on all these players, how about this? What rounds would you take Kelce and Kittel? Like, I think this is a useful conversation on tight ends. If you're in a draft right now, Bobby, when do you think it's acceptable to take Travis Kelce? When do you think it's acceptable to take George Kittle or Zach Ertz?
I've got Travis Kelce number 12 on my big board. So I've got 7 running backs, 1 through 7. David Johnson is just moved ahead of Todd Gurley to number 6. Todd Gurley's number 7. Then I've got the top 4 wide receivers on my board. Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, and then we got Travis Kelce.
I like it. I mean, I have him right there at that turn as well. I have him I think I have him at 14 overall. So I'm right there with you. George Kittle drops a little bit more for me.
I've got him 18. How far are you talking?
Yeah, so Kittle, I actually just landed him in a best ball league. It was at the end of the second round, which obviously I'm comfortable with him there. I have Kelce at 13, and I have George Kittle at 20. But Zach Ertz falls even further. He's someone that I probably wouldn't grab until probably 25th. I think he's a 25th guy on my board.
I've got him 23 right now, just behind Amari Cooper and JuJu Smith-Schuster and AJ Green.
Yeah, I think Ertz is I think that some of those targets are going to dissipate. Having Alshon there for, if he's healthy for the full season. Deshaun Jackson, obviously going to stretch the field. Nelson Aguilar plays better out of the slot.
Miles Sanders can catch the ball too.
Yes, he can. Miles Sanders can catch the ball. You have Dallas Goedert that you've talked about. That's a rare scenario, by the way. It's like Dallas Goedert is like a handcuffed tight end, where it's like if you have a league with
I think Cameron Braid is too. I drafted both those guys in best ball leagues just thinking I might hit the jackpot here.
I don't know. Braid kind of sucked down the stretch last year when O.J. Howard went down. So I think it may have been there was Mike Evans and there was Cameron Braid, but now there's obviously more guys, mouths to feed. But I definitely would be all in on Dallas Goedert if something happened to Zach Ertz. I 100%, let's say, and God forbid, and I'm not wishing an injury upon him. This is a hypothetical, guys. If something happened to Zach Ertz in week 5, okay, and then he's out for the year.
I'm drafting Dallas Goedert in the 3rd round. If it happens preseason, if he's out for the whole season, I'm drafting Dallas Goedert in the 3rd round.
But let's pretend it's week 5 and Ertz goes down, out for the year. Would you spend 100% of the money you have left?
100 fab.
That's what I was on Nick Chubb last year. I don't know if I'd be there. It depends what I had at tight end, but I'd be close.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in Dallas Goedert. Man, he is a good football player. It's a perfect scheme for him. I like him a lot, man. I'm obviously not drafting him in redraft leagues unless it's super late. There's a couple, handcuff running backs, not direct handcuffs to my running back, but, backups. Even if I don't have Ezekiel Elliott, I want Tony Pollard as a backup running back. Reichwell Armstead, I'd love to get both those guys because I think we know that they're the direct backup. Obviously, Darrell Henderson, but he's going to go in the top 100. Okay, so Tags, we talked about the top 3. When are you taking your 4th tight end, O.J. Howard? I've got him at 53, just ahead of Andrew Luck, just behind Sony Michel.
That's pretty funny. I have him at 58. He's right behind. He's behind Andrew Luck, and he's right in front of Mark Ingram. Because that's at the point where it's I feel like you're just kind of like a guy that is going to get some work and you're not excited about him, but he at least fills a role. So O.J. Howard, I think he's a 6th round pick. I think that's, and at 58, you're saying that, if everybody goes according to my board, then it would be at the end of the 5th. But I would say that he's more of a 6th round pick for me. And the same thing with Evan Ingram. I think that they're both in that same conversation. Hunter Henry belongs right in that conversation with them as 6th or 7th round guys, but I don't know if they last that long.
Yeah, I've got Henry a little bit higher than that. I'm going to have a ton of shares of Henry unless I pick in the back end of the 1st round. Then I'm probably going to get Travis Kelce in the early 2nd because no one else is going to take him by then. And I think he's going to be worth the price. Depending on what we hear about Tyreek Hill. Like someone mentioned on one of our guests on the previous shows, Tyreek Hill might only be out 2 weeks, 4 weeks. If that's the case, Travis Kelce, I'm taking him around pick 18.
I still think Kelce's valued even if Tyreek Hill is on the field. I just don't know how much more of a target share Travis Kelce can get in terms. I think it means more for the other guys like a DeMarcus Robinson, a Sammy Watkins, Mecole Hardman. Those guys would get more targets than I think I would give much of a bump to Kelce. I think Kelce, even if we found out Hill wasn't suspended, I think Kelce is worth a pick. I'd say in the top 18 still.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had a question on Twitter, and it's a question we probably should have answered a long time ago. When we're talking about best ball leagues and we're talking about drafts that we've done so far, we're not drafting redraft leagues where it's only for this year, you're setting your lineup and everything like that. We're talking best ball leagues, and best ball leagues are where you draft 18 players, no defense, no kicker. There's no waiver wire, no trades, no setting your lineup. It takes your best possible lineup every single week from what you draft, so there's a ton of strategy, and you want to get the guys who have more boom and bust potential. So that's what we mean when we say best ball.
That's basically it. I wrote a beginner's guide to it. It's a best ball, and you can find that on the website. Where basically, if you're wondering how to get into best ball, if you just type in FantasyPros Best Ball Tagliere. It'll pop up on Google, and you'll be able to read the beginner's guide. It just gives you a head start on what to expect when you go into those leagues. They're a lot of fun. It's just draft only, and you don't have to worry about managing a roster, which is,
And so you can do like 50 of them if you want to, because the draft's the most fun part.
Exactly, and they're slow drafts too, so you could do them it's like 8-hour timers.
All right, Tags, let's finish this off with 2 tight ends in the top 15 ECR that you're not interested in whatsoever. No chance you're getting any shares. And I think we're going to pick the same 2 guys.
The ones that I will not have any shares of, one being Chris Herndon.
How low do you have him?
I have him as the number 19 tight end.
Okay, yeah, I've got him number 18. And right now his ECR is number 11. ADP is number 16. Like, I don't understand. This is the opposite of what I always talk about. The experts are a lot higher on him. What am I missing?
I can't come up with a scenario where I feel like we're missing something here.
I don't get it, man.
They're going to be running fewer plays per game.
I cannot fathom drafting him ahead of Delaney Walker, Trey Burton, Jack Doyle. I could fathom drafting him over Austin Hooper, Jordan Reed, or Greg Olsen, Kyle Rudolph, Jimmy Graham, but I'm not going to do it.
No, I wouldn't either. I will own 0 shares of Chris Herndon. Like, again, they're going to run fewer plays. They added wide receiver help. They added running back that can catch passes out of the backfield. None of it makes sense to me. Herndon, he will not be on any of my rosters.
And Sam Darnold is nowhere close to a budding superstar. I'm sorry for you Jets fans who are optimistic. He had like 2 good games. Chill out.
I think he's going to be fine as a quarterback. I really do. But I don't know where like the enthusiasm, like, oh, he's for sure a franchise quarterback.
Because he had 2 good games and like one of them was on primetime TV, just like Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Does everyone think Josh Allen's a superstar all of a sudden?
A lot of people do in Buffalo are happy.
Oh, who are these people?
Believe me, they were telling me that he's really good. And I mean, I'm like, calm down. He's a really good fantasy quarterback sometimes. But outside of that, I don't think he's someone you want to build your franchise around.
Is he a top 45 quarterback in the NFL in real life? I'm not trying to make a joke. Like, really, I think that's the over-under.
In terms of what he offers a team, yeah. I'll put him in. I would say yes.
Really?
Yeah, I definitely would say yes in terms of what he offers. It's like Cam Newton, right? If you want to break it down as passers, Cam Newton's not top 30.
Okay, would you rather have Josh Allen or Nick Mullins?
I'd probably take Josh Allen.
Oh, no, you wouldn't.
I'd
take
would.
Nick Mullins in a heartbeat. Tyrod Taylor, I'm taking him.
No, I mean, I don't know if we're done with developing Josh Allen. I don't want to hate on him too much, but
yeah, we're not done. I'm saying for this year, I'd rather have Teddy Bridgewater than Josh Allen.
I would not. I would actually rather have Josh Allen. I think Bridgewater has lost one of the things that he had going for him, and it's unfortunate. I'm not trying to kick him while he's down, but
all right. Well, we can agree to disagree. You're a Josh Allen fanboy.
Who's your other guy? So outside of Herndon, who's your other guy?
It's actually kind of hard because Herndon stands out so much as there's no way that I'm touching him, that it's kind of hard to put someone in that same category. I guess if I have to choose someone, I mean, if we're doing ADP, it's really easy, right? TJ Hawkinson, ADP 11, 8 ECR 22. I've got him even lower than that. I've got Hawkinson at a 25 right now, so I'll have no Hawkinson. But in terms of top 15 ECR, I was going to go Austin Hooper just because it's a little too high for me.
Yeah, I also would say Austin Hooper belongs in that. I know some people will throw out there that Austin Hooper finished the top 6 fantasy tight end last year, but let's be real. Once you get outside the top 5, there was a 32-point.
How many tight end 1 games did he have? Like 3?
There was a 32-point drop, like from the tight end 5 to the tight end 6, and then from tight end 6 down to the tight end 14, there was less than that of a gap. So that's what I'm saying. It's like he was closer to the other gap than he was the top 5. So don't overstate that. The Falcons are going to lose.
He was closer to Mark Andrews and CJ Uzama.
Yeah, and that's basically what I'm saying, is that the Falcons are going to lose pass attempts. Austin Hooper, he is what he is. He's a streamer is what he is. And the Falcons, Steve Sarkisian did a good job in terms of exploiting weaknesses last year on opposing defenses. I thought he did. That guy did not deserve to get fired, but he did, and Dirk Cutter's there now. But so Austin Hooper would be the other guy.
All right, final question, Tags. Really important question. Let's say Rob Gronkowski comes out of retirement. He decides he misses football. Are you taking him as a top 10 tight end still?
Yeah. Because if he came back, he'd be healthy. I'd take him over Jared Cook for sure.
What about Eric Ebron?
That's where the conversation begins. I'd probably take Ebron, just because we did see Gronk last year.
Because of health reasons?
Yeah, because I don't know if he's totally like 100%, but I definitely give him the benefit of the doubt over guys like David Njoku or Vance McDonald.
I know I said this was the last question, but it's not. I've actually got one more. Tags, do you think that there is any reason to own Des Bryant in a dynasty league? Before you answer, I want to give you this information. His last 2 years, as bad as he was wide receiver 22, wide receiver 25. He was coming back from the Achilles last year, and so, of course, he was injured. No one wanted to sign him. But he's still just 31 years old, Tags. Is there a chance that Dez Bryant, let's say he re-signs with the Saints, is there a chance that he becomes a starting wide receiver and helps a fantasy team?
No, I've moved on. Dez was he was a guy that helped me to a lot of fantasy titles. I definitely like Dez. I think he's misunderstood sometimes, but Dez Bryant, unfortunately it's over. 31, coming off Achilles, that's the worst injury you could possibly have. That's why I want nothing to do with Emmanuel Sanders this year.
Yeah, but he's a jump baller. He's not an Emmanuel Sanders breaking routes and getting open guy.
Well, what's funny is like even Demaryius Thomas, like people like even earlier in the show I talked about Brady and the fact that the Patriots haven't done much to replace some of the guys they lost, and I totally forgot that they added Demaryius Thomas because he's kind of like an afterthought in my mind, where I feel like his career is just, it's over. When you suffer an injury like that, that's hard to come back from in your prime and like be a player, let alone when you're over 30 years old. So unfortunately, I think Dez is done.
Demaryius Thomas is a full 300 days older than Dez Bryant. He's 1 year closer to a torn Achilles, and people are still drafting Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah,
He's tied to a lesser quarterback, too. Well, that's assuming that Dez Bryant, if he re-signed, would be with the Saints.
I don't even know if I have Demaryius Thomas ranked, to be honest with you. I don't think he's a lock to make the roster for the Patriots.
Okay. All right, man, that's all for today's show. Don't forget to check out PristineAuction.com. Get your dad a Father's Day present if you haven't already. Pristine Auction has all kinds of options, no matter who his team is. There's some great values. You can go up in the price, too, and find some incredible stuff at PristineAuction.com. Everything's guaranteed, authentic, from only the most trusted sources. PRISTINE auction.com. And don't forget to sign up for the JuJu Smith-Schuster signed helmet at FantasyPros.com/contest. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening, and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.